On a day where Dusty May gets extended and you know he's going to be staying in Ann Arbor for the long term, Michigan had its chances to really celebrate that contract extension with vigor. However, things did not work out against Michigan State as Michigan falls 75-62. Let's talk about the game and then Dusty May's contract extension right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. Well, not so happy now. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man at home tonight, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And man, Michigan had its opportunities. Certainly, my brother in metal, Michael Wolf, he texted me during the game noting that Michigan kind of looked out of control at times, even when it had an 8-point lead. And I thought that Michigan was playing a little outside of itself. It was playing a little fast, but it still had such an advantage in a lot of ways in that moment. A lot of things that ended up going wrong in this game hadn't quite fully gone wrong yet. It's not even a case where Michigan did the types of things that you would look at generally and say, yeah, that's a big problem. Now, they did lose the turnover battle, but it was pretty much even until pretty close to the end. Michigan had 15 turnovers and Michigan State had 18 points off of those turnovers, whereas MSU had 11 turnovers and Michigan had 11 points off of said turnovers. But to me, the big place where Michigan lost this game was, it's two places. It started to fall apart on the free throw line in the first half. That was where it kind of started. They ended up shooting 60% compared to 67% from MSU. But at that time, and it was more like they were shooting 30%, right? They were up by 8, but they had 5 missed free throws at that time. And ultimately where it got away from Michigan was rebound. That's the big part to me. And those extra turnovers also did it. But the two teams shot pretty much even. Michigan ended up also not doing so well from 3. Again, Michigan was outperforming there, and then it completely fell off. We'll get to that momentarily. But rebounds is what really, to me, killed Michigan in so many ways. Michigan had 25 total rebounds, 18 defensive, 7 offensive. But listen to what Michigan State had. 34 rebounds, 14 offensive rebounds. Listen, you're not going to win a lot of games when you let other teams have those types of chances. Second chance points. Let's take a look at it. I didn't even look at this number. 15 second chance points is, chance points, which is a big difference in the game. It's a huge difference. MSU wins by 13 points. That isn't the whole game, but that is a massive part of it. And Michigan gave them those opportunities. You mix those things and a couple extra turnovers that right? MSU and Michigan were even on turnovers, like I said, until relatively late in the game. And Michigan just could not figure out offense in the second half. First half, it was shooting close to 60%. Second half, everything goes all the way down to 46%. They end up being pretty much even. Difference being MSU hit more threes, and Michigan's 5 of 21 from the stripe, not from the stripe, but from the arc, behind the arc, and MSU goes 9 of 22. So 1 extra shot, but 4 more makes, and then you add in the rebounds, and then you get yourself beat at home by 13 points. Not a typical Michigan loss in what we've normally seen, but again, they just did not seem like they were kind of it's such a tale of two halves, because I know they only took a 4-point lead into the locker room at halftime, but Michigan felt like it had figured out how to stall Michigan State enough defensively, and it figured out enough with what to do offensively. It was shooting really impressively, and then it just all kind of came crashing down. Michigan had 11 less shots than Michigan State. That's another big part of it. They just didn't have those opportunities because of the rebounds. So you look at that and you say, all right, well, they're shooting relatively equal. If Michigan gets 11 more shots off, there's a pretty good chance that it can win the game, but it does not find a way to do that. So they found a new way to lose. It's only the second time they've lost by double digits all year. The only other one being Purdue, at Purdue. And the season's certainly not over, but now it's in Michigan State's hands. Now, both teams have pretty difficult schedules coming up. Michigan's got Maryland left, got Michigan State on the road. And Michigan State, I don't remember their schedule, but they got a couple ranked teams down there. So Michigan cedes that first place position, and certainly the Spartans are going to have bragging rights for at least a couple weeks, right? That's the final regular season game of the year in East Lansing. Was it like March 6th or something like that? I don't remember the exact date. But Michigan had its opportunities, and it completely blew it. You can't look at it in the same way that you look at a lot of the other few Michigan losses where you say just undisciplined or, hey, they had a huge lead and then they just squandered it. Like, they had a sizable lead. It was an 8-point lead at one point. But they couldn't capitalize on it. The scoring droughts, I mean, they finished on a 4-minute and 12-second scoring drought. And they had multiple 3+ minute scoring droughts in the second half, whereas in the first half, they didn't really have that. They had like a 2-minute scoring drought, and otherwise, Michigan was able to do a lot, right? Like I said, they were shooting close to 60% in the first half. And that comes down about 14 points. Actually, it's more like 10 percentage points. They start struggling from three. They start making bad shot selections. They just kind of tightened up in ways that you hope that they wouldn't in a game that is of this magnitude. And you hate to lose a game like this. Like I said, Dusty May gets extended today. This game's at Chrysler. It's sold out. It's the most tickets that have been sold in like 10 years. Electric crowd from what it seemed like on TV. And, that's certainly what they were, constantly mentioning. And it just really didn't feel like midway through the second half that Michigan stood a chance. Now, valiant effort to get it back to a 3-point game, but then they ceded that all the progress they made, right? This just shows you how the rebounds worked, right? Because at that point, they were down by about 10 rebounds. It was like 24 to 10, or not 10, 24 to 14 in the rebound disparity. And then when Michigan cuts it to 3, after that series of events, when Michigan got it to, they were down what? I don't remember the exact score, but the rebound disparity suddenly was like 28-24. And you're like, okay, now Michigan is actually cooking with gas. Michigan only got one more rebound after that, though. Whereas MSU added 6 more. So that was just to me, that was the biggest part of the entire game, is the fact that Michigan just could not get to the basketball. And even when they got their first so many times it felt like Vlad Goldin is right there, gets a finger on it. Danny Wolf a couple times, and it goes off their fingers and right into the hands of one of the Spartans. So there's that. But let's talk a little individual play. I don't know how much we're going to get into that, and then we'll talk about Dusty May. We'll do that all here in just a moment. But before we do, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets, into a same-game parlay. Love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. After that FanDuel read, I think we're going to combine segments 2 and 3 into segment 2 from what I had intended. I don't know how much more I can add outside of what I already have. I mean, like, I can, but I just don't think I can. I don't think we're going to be able to carry it for 20 more minutes. So I have something else I want to talk about. It's a old school Peter Griffin. You know what grinds my gears? That's what it is. And it's personal to me and to none of you. But it is football related. It's Big Ten football related. We'll get to it. Segment 3. All right. So would have liked to have seen more from multiple players looking at the home stats right now. Disappointing kind of across the board. The only real show out player was Vlad. And he sat on the bench for, not long periods. He only didn't play for 7 minutes. But it felt like they really needed him kind of down the stretch. They bring in Will Shetter. Yeah, Will Shetter gets a 2-point play. Will Shetter, by the way, is one of only 3 players who was in the positive in the plus minus. So can't complain too much, but really wanted to see Vlad out there more because he led the team with 21 points. Again, 5 rebounds, man. You want to see something better than that from a guy that's 7 foot, right? Like, just, you got to come down with those. Danny Wolf, a little bit of a disappointing game for him. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Led the team in assists in a big way. But you want to see more in terms of both points. And, I mean, he was 1 for 4 from 3. Again, from 3, no one was great. Namari Burnett was the only one with more than 1 3-pointer. He was 2 for 5. Otherwise, you have 1 for 4 with Danny Wolf, 1 for 4 with Trey Donaldson. That's his only score of the entire game, was that one. You need more from your point guard than what you got there. And then Will Shedder was 1 for 2. He was the best percentage-wise from 3. That's it. That's everybody. You see Reuben Jones, 0 for 2. He had 2 points. Vlad Goldin had a complete miss, 0 for 1. Justin Pippen, 0 for 1. Roddy Gale continuing to have his struggles, 1 for 6 total, 0 for 2 from 3. And, it's just not a great performance by most on this team. They need Namari Burnett and Vlad are kind of the only ones that I'm like, all right, good, right? Namari had 12. Danny Wolf had 11, and you say that's disappointing considering what he normally does. And, but like overall, like this is the type of game where you saw where Michigan does not trust its bench compared to where MSU is. The depth of MSU's bench is completely different than Michigan's at this point, even though Michigan has some guys. Now, like, listen, they didn't start Roddy Gale. So he came in off the bench. Reuben Jones got the start. But you got from the bench, 1 from LJ Kason from the free throw line, 2 from Justin Pippen, 5 from Roddy Gale, 5 from Will Shedder. 13 total points. You take that and you put that with MSU, who got 31 points from its bench. Trey Holloman off the bench, insane. That was like kind of the dagger moment happened when Trey Holloman hit 2 back-to-back threes to push the lead to 8 after Michigan had just kind of climbed back. Somewhere, it was early, but not that early, kind of halfway through the second half. It was like, okay, Michigan's kind of withstood this, and then Trey Holloman comes in and does and hits those 2 threes. 18 points, 3 for 4 from 3. Like, you cannot let that happen, right? You cannot let a bench player be the second highest scorer on a team like MSU. You just can't do it. So they had those second chance points. They had the bench points. And they just had more possession. Just doesn't work to win a game like that. Now, still really good news that Dusty May got extended. That's huge for Michigan because Indiana sitting there looming large is his alma mater. Normally you think, hey, an alma mater comes calling. You're probably going to lose that guy. Now, if you're Indiana, you kind of wish you would have made this move last offseason or next season because you have a much better chance after year 2 of Dusty May at Michigan of prying him loose, right? Or year 3. But now you're in a situation where you can't get the guy who's turned Michigan basketball around in a hurry, despite of how things have looked today. It's still, it's the vast improvement. 3rd most wins in a first year so far by a Michigan basketball coach. Certainly could finish the year with the most. Weird that Brian Ellerby, I didn't know that until today, that Brian Ellerby has that title. But nonetheless, I think that this is huge news for Michigan to get this locked up. Huge on Ward. And I know you're going to give me your downvotes today because you're not happy about the game, so I'll accept them for this Ward part too. But nonetheless, huge on Ward to get that. He's targeted Dusty May in the first place, got it done quickly, right? Absolutely the right hire. And then as soon as it's starting to be like, oh, he's really good, he's doing really good at Michigan and Indiana, his alma mater's got an opening. He's very quick to just get that buttoned up just as fast. So that is huge on Michigan to be able to finish that off. We don't know the details yet about the length or anything like that, but multi-year contract extension, that is huge for Michigan despite what happened tonight. You just wish that it could have been celebrated a bit more than what you ended up getting tonight. And it's unfortunate that this game went the way it did. And to lose at home the way that you just did, I mean, this is the first loss at home? Am I remembering that right? They lost to Wake Forest on a neutral site. They lost to Purdue. They lost to can't remember everyone they lost to, and I'm not going to look up the schedule right now because it's just going to take away from it. But I mean, just like the atmosphere, everyone's juiced up, everyone's excited, and just to have that big news come before, it kind of feels like, hey, it's your night. Kind of felt like it too. Like, this is one of the reasons why we decided that we were going to do the podcast at night as a reaction show. Not because I thought, oh, for sure Michigan's going to win, but I was like, man, it just kind of really feels like this is going to be Michigan's night in some ways, and it isn't. And congrats to MSU. They're going to certainly gloat a lot because that's what they do. And we're just going to have to grin and bear it if you are a Michigan fan, and hope that you can get revenge at the both in the final in the regular season, as well as maybe in the NCAA or the Big Ten tournament, and maybe the NCAA tournament. Who knows, right? But that's the thing about college basketball. A lot of times you play the one team twice. Now, you lost at home. Usually it seems like Michigan wins the home one and loses the road one. It's hard to win at the Breslin Center. It really is a special place for basketball. I've been there, I think, 4 times for games. I don't go to every one because a lot of times it's so packed. They don't have seating or whatever, end up being in like the overflow or not the main overflow where you don't even get to watch the game live. But you end up being in an area where it's like, I can't sit and type out my article. So what's the point of going? But it does have a different feel to it than going to Chrysler. It really has basketball is actually special here type of feeling. Not trying to demean Michigan basketball, but still. Nonetheless, still a great season thus far. Lots of big games left. Finish out on a high note. And hopefully Michigan's learned the lessons and learns that, hey, it needs to be tougher. The great news, I think, if you were to look for a silver lining here, you look for one. When it comes to fast break points, both teams at 10. Now, Michigan wants to run the basketball, but MSU is systematically enabled to run the basketball. Like, fast break points is what it does. So for both teams have the same, that's a step in the right direction. Now you just got to fix the other things, figure out how you can win in March against a Spartan team that now is control of first place. They control their destiny, but Michigan can jump right back into it as long as it can figure itself out. All right. You want to know what grinds my gears? We're going to get to it here in just a moment. All right, let's finish out. It was announced today. This is for my people in the media, and I know one person who's super happy about this. Super happy, like just beyond overjoyed. It's almost like this person, MLive's Aaron McMahon, became the shadow Big Ten commissioner because Big Ten Media Days this year is going to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he already tweeted that he's stoked about it. Right? I am not. Well, number one, I don't love to fly. I especially don't love being on a 4.5-hour flight to do anything work-wise. It's weirdly sometimes I handle those longer flights better than I do the alternative, the short flights. My last flight was coming back from Tampa, and I did not handle it well. Even though I was sitting there, watching live TV on my iPad. I was watching Penn State second round playoff game. Or whatever it was, the New Year's Eve one against who was that? Who they played? Boise State. You'd think I would just be overjoyed by that, but no. Okay, here's the thing. Here's why I'm upset about it. Now, we knew that this was going to come at some point, right? Because they added the 4 West Coast schools. Okay, but there's 18 schools in this conference, and I understand you want to make those other schools it's great for USC and UCLA because now they only have a 5-hour drive, which is akin to what everyone else has when this is in Indianapolis, okay? Because when it's in Indianapolis, now obviously I think when it comes city to city, going to Las Vegas, albeit in July, is probably a better experience than going to Indianapolis at any time ever. Well, except for December. I like going there in December. But it really only placates 2 schools. And I guess a little bit Washington and Oregon, but that's still probably like a 2.5 hour flight for those schools to get down to Las Vegas. It's not close. So they got to jump on planes, but Indianapolis is drivable for the bulk of Big Ten footprint. Not everybody, right? Penn State is just isolated. It's a flight for Rutgers and Maryland, but those are easy flights to get from. It's like an hour and a half from if that, from New Jersey or, Newark or wherever you want to fly out, or DC. It's like 2 hours from Ohio State, hour for Indiana, hour and a half for Purdue, 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours for Illinois and Northwestern, 4 hours like for Wisconsin. Minnesota's just a little isolated as well. So, like, what are we doing here? Like, I understand Big Ten is anew, but like adding the 4 West Coast schools is one thing. But it's another thing to kind of take it. I understand Big Ten Media Days only really impacts us in the media. But what it does is it takes it out of the footprint. Like the footprint, we expanded the footprint as a conference. Yes. But now, like, it's not like, instead of like endearing those schools to like come to like, bring it back to Chicago before you put it in Las Vegas, man. Because that's at least like an easy flight from everywhere. It's like the second busiest airport in the entire country behind Atlanta Hartsfield. Put it back in Chicago before you do this. Because now it's like, okay, what's next? We're just gonna have it in Hawaii. I mean, they'd be better off having it in Nebraska, which is like literal middle of the country, and just be like everyone except for Nebraska and I guess Iowa. Good luck. It's just weird to me. And it continues to soften and cheapen the identity of this hard-nosed conference. Basically what I'm saying with all of this, despite my personal inconvenience, because this is partially about personal inconvenience, but it is not just that. It's the loss of identity of the conference and college football. Because here's at least the thing you could say about the SEC. They still added schools that were inside of its footprint, right? They just kind of went adjacent. It was like no different than Michigan adding Nebraska when the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma, right? Like you already have a school in Texas. You're just going up the highway from College Station to Austin. And then you're just going further up the highway and adding the state adjacent, right, just to the north of Texas by adding Oklahoma. It's still, everything is in the southeast. You could say, middle south, but it's all right there. And it's just with everything that's going on in college football, the lessening of things when the additions and everything, I'm not that happy with the direction, the expanded playoff. I'm not happy with that. Not just because Ohio State won. I wasn't happy about it when they announced it. And now they're talking about going up to 16 or something like that. And it's too much. And it was evident when they went to the 14 playoff. It was like, okay, this is better than the BCS. And as much as like Ohio State and some of the schools that hadn't gotten to be in the playoff before, like Penn State, might look at the 12 team and say like, this was great. This was awesome. You're going to have different feelings when you don't make it. And you kind of recognize that the exclusivity is no longer, and the identity of regional football is being lessened. So if you really want to keep going this route, then just like combine Big Ten, SEC. At this point, just combine them. You've got the Big Four teams on the West Coast in the Big Ten. You got all of the big schools in the South minus like Florida State and Miami. SEC should just add those. Let's just all become one big conference and go back to having at least a smaller playoff. And they're not going to do it because money runs all of this, but it's sad to me to see the watering down of the things that made college football great. And part of what made college football great were the regional differences. And the Big Ten expanding Big Ten Media Days, go to Las Vegas, it just feels very un-Big Ten. That's all. It just disappoints me. But anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight. We will be back on Saturday with the mailbag. Just needed the day yesterday. Nothing, no reason, just needed it just to like kind of recuperate. Be in the Bible, be in God's word for the day, and decided to push the mailbag to Saturday. So we will, there were only 30 something questions in there. It's low for a while. So if you still have questions, get them in, and we'll do that sometime Saturday afternoon. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.